Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation on Calculation Manager for Hyperion. My name is David Jolly. I'm the Director of Client Relations here at Analysis Express. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. Number one, all attendees will be muted. If you do have a question during the presentation, you can ask on the bottom left side of your screen. We will answer questions after the presentation and demo. After we are finished with the presentation, there will be a short survey where we ask you to rate our presentation. It should only take about a minute of your time. You'll also be able to download our slides once the presentation is over. There will be a link provided in the chat box, and you will also receive an email with a link to the slides. A little bit about Analysis Express. We were founded in 2004 in Westchester, Ohio. We provide advanced analytics, big data, and business intelligence services. We are Oracle, Microsoft, and IBM partners. And you can see some of the following platforms that we support and some of the technology that we use. And you can also see some of our experience, which includes Fortune 500 companies. Before we get started, I wanted to run a short poll just to get an idea of how much experience our audience has with Calculation Manager. So let me get that set up. If you could answer for us, we'd appreciate it. Okay. Thank you very much for your answers. Here are the topics for today's presentation. First of all, we're going to go over what exactly is Calculation Manager. We're going to go through the benefits of Calculation Manager. We also will cover the prerequisites, what you actually need to be able to use Calculation Manager. Security. We'll go through logging in and selecting the different type of views you can use. We'll go through importing some script. We also will go through designing rules. One of the nice features on Calculation Manager is it displays errors and warnings, so we'll go through that with you. We'll also take a look at debugging and deployment. And after we go through those items, we will also provide a live demo and answer your questions afterwards. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce our Chief Architect, Derek Naylor. Derek will take you through the rest of the presentation and demo and answer your questions afterwards. Derek?
All right, thanks, David. Can you hear me all right? All right, sounds good. Okay. So what is Calculation Manager? Calc Manager is a workspace module used to graphically import, develop, debug, manage, and deploy business rules for HFM planning and Essbase, all in one easy-to-use web-based application. It was first offered in EPM 11.1.1.0, and every version released since. Hyperion Business Rules is officially retired and no longer offered as of 11.1.2.2. So if you're currently using Business Rules and you want to update Hyperion, you will need to migrate Calculation Manager if you want to keep using those rules. And there are many methods of importing business rules into Calculation Manager depending on the product and version, so a lot of options there. So the benefits, it's extremely flexible. Rules are created or imported, can be viewed and edited graphically and manually coded, which provides more options to end users. The graphical representations of complex calculation benefit business users. This is a great benefit to those who are not experienced programmers, since you don't have to explicitly write the code. It's a single web-based interface for financial management, Essbase, and planning. You previously needed separate applications in order to accomplish similar tasks. Calc Manager offers excellent line-by-line debugging for Essbase scripts, which we'll go over later. This gives Calculation Manager more of an IDE feel or integrated development environment. We're going to cover this later. The displaying of errors and warnings is incredibly more verbose. This is by far my favorite feature in Calculation Manager. And you will be able to switch from graphical view and the script view with ease as long as you save. And for the prerequisites, so you need EPM 11.1.1.0 or higher. If you're unable to access Calculation Manager, you may not have all the prerequisites installed. If you don't see it in Workspace, there is the possibility that you just need to configure it. It was never set up or properly set up. And just get a hold of us for more information if you're having trouble. For the security, security for Calculation Manager for Essbase is inherited from Essbase, so there are no extra steps or configuration required to get started with Calculation Manager for Essbase right away. You can have access to everything you currently already have access to through provisioning. For financial management and planning users, there are specific roles for each that you can assign and give to create, edit, delete objects for those products. These are just options that are available in shared services. I just provision them to the appropriate. Okay, so logging in the Calc Manager, you can tell if it's installed if you go to Navigate, Register, and Calculation Manager. Unless you don't have permission. All right, so using desktop mode. So desktop mode, once you log in, you're going to be this desktop mode will display. There's several different views. The default view is System View. This lists application, plan types, and objects that you have permission to view. Most tasks will be completed here, and this is actually the view I'll be using during the entire demonstration. I can skip ahead really quick. So it's on the left-hand side here. Very similar to EAS. Nice. You got Custom View. It allows you to create folders and show only objects you want to see. This can offer the end user a more focused view of what they want to see if that's what they prefer. Deployment View. This contains rules and rule sets that you can use as deployable. It allows you to do full or partial deployments, but if you're just editing a couple of scripts, it's not mandatory that you switch to this view to deploy them. When you're satisfied with the rule that you save, just right-click on it inside of System View and select Deploy. Of course, this just offers more options. Filter View then allows you to query by example. And then on the right-hand side, I showed you System View before, but on the right-hand side, you can see Deployment View. You can see to be deployed because I haven't actually deployed it yet. And so the Actions menu. It allows several different actions depending on the view that you're in. Selecting System View Database Properties allows you to perform many of the same tasks that can be in EAS without the need to access EAS or access the Administration Services console at all. Later on, I'll actually pull up side by side each one so we can compare that. And one of the examples that differences the database properties in Calculation Manager are actually a little bit more feature rich, which I have a slide on later. I'll show you that and in the demo. Selecting System View Import allows you to bring pre-existing calculation scripts into Calc Manager for editing and advanced debugging features. I'm also including detailed instructions on how to do this later on in the presentation so that you can benefit from Calculation Manager immediately and explore its features on your own. These shortcut icons, you press these icons, directly access features without going through the action menu. It's just the same options that are available in the actions menu. It's just faster. It's just preference. I said it gives you lots of options though. So this is the database properties menu in Calculation Manager. So normally if you go to database properties in EAS, you can't rearrange the dimensions or change dimensions from dense to sparse and vice versa. But here you can actually offers the ability to do that. If you just click on that, it'll allow you to change it. So nice. And so here's importing a calculation script so you can get started right away. And so notice that when you bring in a calculation script into Calculation Manager, you actually call a rule, but it doesn't really make a difference when you play it back. It becomes a calculation script again. It's just terminology. So you go to Rules and you click Import, and this box on the right will pop up. You press Browse, you go to Location, select it. And then one thing you want to make sure is that you name it. I usually name it the same name. You can name it something different, but for some reason it doesn't default to the name that the script actually is. Just remember to change that and you're fine. And then you're going to want to press Import in the bottom. right side, you can see that. And then confirmation will come up, you just press OK, and then you want to go back into Calculation Manager, click on your database, and you press refresh, and then it will show up. So then we fully imported this as a rule, and then we can edit it as we please, just by double click. All right, so once you double click on it, the rule designer will come up. This is how you edit the rule. You can create a rule flowchart to complement calculation script. This allows you to add code to a calculation script without directly editing the calculation script code, which is the graphical part we're going to talk about. I will show this in a bit later on in the demo. There's some useful drag and drop features as well that were never offered. It can be useful for non-technical employees to create and manage calculation script. Again, this goes back to how much users can greatly benefit from this. The flowchart method takes a little bit longer if the person writing the calculation script is an expert in writing calculation script. I just wanted to include this because from what I've seen, the graphical flowchart view code is not a great benefit to somebody who considers themselves an expert writing calculation scripts. However, there are any other features in the calculation manager I've found that are useful to everyone, no matter what skill level. Myself, and the following two topics are examples of those. Oh yeah, so here's a flowchart that I was talking about earlier. So normally when you're writing code, it's literally all programming. So this offers a much better option for business users, or if you just want to understand it conceptually. Drag and drop features, we'll show this later. Okay, so displaying an image warning. So this is definitely my favorite feature. Awesome feature. It will decrease your calculation times. It's accessed in the errors and warnings tab under Rule Designer, so we'll go over this later for sure. It is really easy to use. You just click on the tab and press the green button for go, and it will analyze your script and give you all the errors and warnings. The best practices. It'll make suggestions for you, tell you how many cells are affected, how many passes through the code. It's awesome. It gives a much more detailed error messages when something goes wrong. This can save incredible amounts of time. Features I like is that it puts the exact line number where the error takes place, and it is accurate. EAS simply cannot match the level of debugging the calculation manager has to offer. EAS, sometimes it'll say that some problem exists on this line, but it's not really the right line. And sometimes you'll have a code, a script that's, if you have a 1600 line long script and it just says specific lines, it won't tell you the line. It's just calculation manager tells you exactly the problem. It provides guidance to decrease calculation time by pointing out areas of code that may be slowing down the entire process. And not only does it show errors and warnings, it actually shows the parts of the code that are implemented inefficiently. Even if you're getting the correct numbers, it will tell you which parts are a little bit slow depending on how you wrote it. Fixing these as they arise can greatly increase performance. It also suggests best practices for handling data in different members depending on if they're sparse. And some may find this overly verbose depending on if you're using pre-existing calculation scripts committed to production. I would consider this feature a bit more useful if you're developing the script with it from the beginning, but it's still useful either way. It's still extremely useful. I can see this being very useful for writing highly efficient, fast calculation scripts. If you're starting a calculation manager from the beginning, when I say beginning, I mean the beginning of a project's development. You're still able to change the outline at will. I believe that this is technically the best way to utilize it for its maximum potential, but it's still useful either way. Much more useful for pointing out there are actually errors in the code. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the exact line number. If you work with longer calculation scripts, this could save hours and hours of debugging depending on what specific errors are. And here is the errors and warnings. So if you run this in the bottom, in the middle there, it shows you the number of affected cells, number of passes, assignment mismatches. There's a warning right there. And if there were errors, it would show errors as well. It's just a level of analysis that was never available. You wanted to go just spend hours looking at logs. And then debug mode. So this allows you to set up breakpoints similar to how an IDE will let you debug if you're a programmer. We're going to go over this later too. It can pinpoint errors in the calculations script in an easy, streamlined way. So this, I wanted to include this at the end because earlier we talked about importing the script. We kind of talked about what you can do once you import it, and then now deploying it. This is the step for that. You just right click, press deploy, and you're done. It's as simple as that. And now we're going to go to the demo. Set up. Can you see this, David? So this is, the default workspace view. If I were to log into workspace without pressing anything. So the way to access Calculation Manager is you simply go to Navigate, Register, and then Calculation. So you can see you got planning, we got Essbase. For this, we're going to go over the Essbase stuff, expand Essbase. And I've just been using Sample Basic for simplicity. So to go over, I wanted to do a comparison of menus in EAS versus the menus in Calculation Manager. So here. Right. You can see it's very similar. So if I wanted to look at database properties here, for example, normally the only way to access this is to open up, make sure you can get an EAS, and you have to come in here through these menus. But actually, you really need to do that more because just go to database properties right here. I can open it up. See, very similar menus. Only on the left-hand side, you actually have some more menus, some more options. One of the options I wanted to say earlier was that here, you can click right here, change this to sparse, change it to dense, rearrange it, save it. This type of features are not available in the database properties. So it allows you to do a lot, like almost all the things that you can do in EAS and more. It's great, and it allows you to access your. It's pretty quick. Sure. All right, so let's just look at the rules I made. So here we're in Edit Script View. If we want to look at Designer, we just click. So this is the view of the script from a graphical standpoint. Basically, what this does is it uses a sample basic database. It fixes on the budget scenario, and it rolls up Eastern markets for products. And basically what I did is I went in here, I drag your data up here. Once you drag it up here, a menu will pop up. Kind of you want it to be, and then it translates it for you into the script. Or you can switch to Xscript, start changing it this way. As you can see, I can come in here and edit it at will. Save it. Switch. Says save. Switch back. It'll automatically update this. But it's either option. It just adds incredibly more. So some of the basic stuff, if you want to do a fix, just select member range, drag it over here, and then this is budget. And you fix on budget, so this is what it looks like in the code. You pull up the code down here by pressing script. You can see this fix for budget and how it encompasses all this, meaning that everything's focused on budget. That's what this represents. means everything inside here is actually what you are touching in budget. It's just another way to look at it, but it's really cool. For example, like this clear data one. Click on clear data. It'll pop up a menu like this. So this is a menu like if I were to have dragged clear data for the very first time, this menu would pop up. So if you know some of the scripts yourself, just kind of type in here exactly what you want. So what this does is it just fixes on, great, just clears this intersection. There's basically the upper level members I want. You can click here and click on members individually, or you can manually type in here. I just manually typed exactly what I wanted to do. Press exit, save it, just translates it into the code for you. Shows you right here what it actually translated to for that particular piece. Everything. Here. See how it gets incorporated. Okay, so now I want to go over errors and warnings. This is definitely my favorite feature I was talking about earlier. You can access this from script view or designer view in this version. I know in previous versions it both. Let's see, I can switch back and forth. So you go to errors and warnings, you press the green button. And here we go, it shows you the total number of cells affected, where it passes. So if this number is really high, you know, assignment mismatch, improper attention uses. This is like if something's dense and sparse and you're doing something wrong. Complain about the way I'm implementing certain things. So I added these lines simply because I wanted to show you guys debugging later. So what I was doing is I was setting each to missing, calculating, setting cell through. I'll show you why I did this, but complaining because it doesn't really. This is already. Yeah, so this is great. Focusing on what you're trying to look at. I want to go to debug, you just go to action. Again, you can do this from designer or edit script. Here's your code. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the IDE interface. And this is just unbelievably awesome. I wish I would have had this years ago. But basically, for example, you can set breakpoints here. So I want to put a breakpoint right here. And when you run the code, it'll stop at that point. And it'll show you, it'll show you the current exact member that it's calculating. And it'll just stop the code right there. So you can then put what you want to see, for example. So I want to make a breakpoint with a condition now. So it'll only stop if the condition is met. Set it here. So if I want to set a condition, I click right there, right click on it and go add condition. So let's say I want this to stop if text is not missing. I know it will be calculated. Okay, it's calculated for this, so I know for sure it's not going to equal missing. And if I the debugger, it'll stop right there. It'll tell you what member it's looking at, and it'll say the value before was 1690 and the value after is 1690. So say not missing, it did correctly stop there because it is in fact not missing. It shows you exactly what it is. So if I wanted to change this condition, Set it here. Say exactly equal to missing. This shouldn't stop at all. Display. It says that script debugging is complete. So here, it never stopped because this technically never happened. So you can put in breakpoints there for sure, or you can put in conditional breakpoints to stop at certain times. Sometimes, a data point will change and you just can't figure out why. It's just ridiculous, and you end up having to copy paste code over and over. It makes it way easier, and it shows you the members, and it's just really awesome. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show was runtime prompts. So this is something that's been available in planning for quite some time, but until 11.1.2.4 it was never available. So to do this, you basically what I did is I took my east. So what this does is it calculated markets for budget. A runtime prompt is the same thing, except that it only calculates exactly what you pick. So it doesn't have to be east. It'll ask you. If you just go right here and you press launch, ask for the specific market, which single market do you want to calculate. So I don't have to pick east. I can pick anywhere. West. So it ran with no errors. If there was errors, it'll show it here, since there are none. Yeah, so then that is runtime prompt for Essbase, which is really awesome. And users can come in here, have to have these scripts slightly different. You can just set up these runtime prompts. It's really great. I think that's all I was wanted to show. Does anyone have any questions? Specifically, we can go over. Some questions here, just a sec. So one of the questions was, can this be batched? I'm not sure. I know that if you want to do runtime prompts, for example, the way that you would get around, you wouldn't batch actual calculation manager, but what you would do is you set up the script as runtime prompt script, and when you deploy it to EAS, it'll be set up in the top as like runtime substitution variables. And when you run Maxel line, when you declare the line, in the line you say run script with runtime substitution variables, blah, 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 and then that would be the equivalent of a runtime prompt. That's how you would batch it. So the answer is yes, but you deploy it to EAS, and then you use Maxel with runtime substitution variables arguments. It says, can calculation manager call a DOS command? I don't think so, but I know that you can use a batch file to run Maxel stuff and you deploy from calculation manager. That's kind of what you were asking. Let's see what other questions we have. So one of the questions is, can the calc manager rule be portable from one database to another database? Meaning, if I create a database, guys. I'm pretty sure that you can use rules as subcomponent, insert those into other rules. So that goes back to the usability of rules themselves. I think that's what you're asking.
Your line is now unmuted.
Okay, Derek. Thanks for the presentation and demo. We just have a takeaway slide here. Let me find it for you. Just to kind of give you an overall view of what we think is important about Calculation Manager and how you can use it. First of all, we think it's the new standard platform for Hyperion development. In the future, there isn't really going to be support for, obviously for business rules, and also new features are constantly being added to Calculation Manager and not EAS. We think it provides faster overall development with the ability to go through debugging and errors and warnings, and it also kind of gives you some guidance on how you can improve your code. We also think it's a little bit more flexible. It's pretty easy to go back and forth between graphical view and also your script view. So if you have any questions or would like to know more about Calculation Manager and how to actually get it implemented at your company, please give us a call or contact us via email. I want to thank everybody for attending today. We have a little short survey. If you could fill that out as soon as we're done here, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks again. Have a nice day.